Welcome back to the Casual Ethnographer. On today's episode, we will be in the kitchen baking Copycat Starbucks pumpkin cream cheese muffins. Both are grain-free, one is vegan, and one is not. So let's get started. So today we will be making a copycat version of Starbucks pumpkin cream cheese muffins. Yesterday I set myself up to bake and I ran out of vanilla. I had just enough in the bottom of the bottle to make like a hot chocolate or something, but not enough to bake with. So we're all stocked up today. So let's get started. I'm going to show you two versions. One will contain dairy and eggs, and the other one will be vegan. Both are grain-free. I have developed an issue over the last few years where my body's more sensitive to a lot of different foods. So while I am not vegan, I can still eat meat. I have had to give up eggs and dairy and grains and other fun stuff. So my preferred method would have been to add a sourdough starter to this, but I understand that not everyone who is grain-free has a grain-free starter. We're going to start by feeding my starter, and I have to do a discard. That's just the way today is, but it will not go into the baking. However, if you have a sourdough starter and you would like to add some discard to this recipe, comment below and I will tell you how to do that. It's actually very simple, and I might do a future recipe where I do it that way. I just didn't want to make 3 different versions because each batch is 15 muffins, and as it is, I will be sitting on 30 muffins at the end of today. So let's get started with feeding the starter. If you guys aren't familiar, this is Hilda. Now, Hilda is the daughter of a starter I had before Bertha. Bertha got the dreaded pink slime, and before that happened though, and I had to throw her away, I was lucky enough to make a batch of bread and freeze the dough. And so at the end of the summer, when I was ready to get back to sourdough starter business, I thawed the dough, baked it off, all but just a small portion, and I put it in the jar with the flour and water. So let's get started doing that. So my best advice to you from personal experience is to not use the water from your fridge. I think that's where Bertha got in trouble. At any rate, the first thing I do is I stir it up. You'll get this liquid at the top. It's called hooch. It just means your starter is hungry. Hilda is hungry. She's been in the fridge for a few days. So, of course she is. Now, the recipe that I intend to use this discard for will be cookies. And I will be replacing 2 eggs. And I will be using what's called a flaxseed egg. So I need the equivalent of about 6 tablespoons to replace those 2 eggs of starter. And then I will add in 2 tablespoons of flaxseed meal to that and let it thicken, and that will replace my 2 eggs in that recipe. So I need about 100 grams. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've got my scale set to grams. I'm going to measure out 100, and then I will get Hilda fed, and we can get on to making muffins. Okay, Hilda, I'm going to get her cleaned up and get her on the counter, and we can start muffin making. Okay, so let's start making muffins. The first muffin I'm going to make is the vegan variety, and my muffin tin only holds 24, and we're going to be making 15 each batch. If it was 12 each, I would just make them at the same time and bake them at the same time, but that's not the way life is working out today. So we're going to do vegan first, and then we'll do the dairy version second. But I went ahead and set out just to prepare for that, because you want your dairy and eggs at room temperature when you go to bake, always, unless it says otherwise in the recipe. I took out 4 ounces of cream cheese, a half a stick of butter, which is a quarter cup of butter, so yeah, and 1 egg. It's just going to relax on the counter while we get to work. You're also going to need milk. Now for the vegan variety, we will be using a quarter cup of vegan butter. Now for those of you who have watched me bake before, this is my favorite brand. Use whatever makes you happy. I just like this because it doesn't have a lot of random weird stuff in it. Like, I don't do well with pea protein. As far as the vegan version of cream cheese, this is the brand that I like. Again, no affiliate program. It's just, I like the texture, and again, no pea protein. I have these sitting out on my counter, getting ready for my use. For the either variety, I'm using 5 kinds of flours today. So there will be buckwheat flour, sweet potato flour, coconut flour, cassava flour, and tiger nut flour. Now, if you don't have one of those, or you want to use a different one, it doesn't matter. Your ultimate goal, though, is to get to 1.5 cups of flour. However you get there. I personally don't like to use almond flour in this recipe. It makes it really heavy, really dense, and it already is going to be a dense muffin because you're using equal amounts of pumpkin puree and flour. So, speaking of pumpkin puree, this is what I bought. When you go and you look for it, make sure, it says pure pumpkin, not pumpkin pie. There are some out there that are pre-spiced. You don't want to do that. You want to be in control of that, so just look for the pureed pumpkin. We're also using just plain white sugar. As far as the vegan milk, this is my favorite kind. Use whatever makes you happy. I just like this stuff because it's got like extra fat added to it. It's the closest to cow milk that I have found. But again, whatever makes you happy. So we're going to use a muffin method, which means we're going to mix the dry together, then we're going to mix the wet together, then we're going to put the wet in the dry and get them in the muffin tins. Let's get the oven started. 350 degrees. And let's get a bowl. Okay, so in this bowl, we are going to measure out, I'm just going to use a quarter cup measuring cup to do everything that I need to do. I am going to start with 3/4 cup of white sugar. Now, if you like coconut sugar, go for it. I would just refrain from brown sugar because it does have some moisture to it, and we don't need any extra moisture. The pumpkin is bringing plenty to the party. Okay, so there's 3/4 cup of white sugar. So these flours, I will use 1/4 cup of each of these. So we'll start with coconut, buckwheat, tiger nut, sweet potato, and then 1/2 cup of cassava. Okay, so that gets us to 1.5 cups of flour. Next is baking powder. This is the brand that I like. I like this because, well, it was the only one I could find that was corn-free. Most standard baking powder has corn in it. And if you're grain-free, you can't do that. So we are going to have 2 tablespoons plus 1/2 teaspoon. And not only are we using this as a leavener, but we are also using it to replace the egg. Now, if you want to do a sourdough starter discard, then you would still use baking powder, just less of it. Okay, so there's the 2 tablespoons plus 1/2 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon baking soda. Again, if you watch me, you know I buy it in large amounts and then put it in jars. 1 teaspoon of that. 1/4 teaspoon salt. Okay, and the final dry ingredient is pumpkin spice. If you have pumpkin pie spice, it's probably fine. It's not one that I keep around the house. There is an extra ingredient in one or the other, and I can't remember what it is, but by all means, do not run out and buy new spices. If you've got one or the other, I'm sure it's perfectly fine. My super not exact measurements. Okay, so 1 teaspoon pumpkin spice or pumpkin pie spice. If you like more, use more. If you like less, use less. Okay, so with these dry ingredients, I'm just going to spend some time working these through. Now, the tiger nut flour likes to clump, so once I get a basic, nice little cloud of flour. Once I get it basically mixed, I am then going to go through and start knocking down any clumps that I find. And then we will move on to wet ingredients. Okay, dry ingredients are done. Let's move on to wet. Now I like to measure my pumpkin in a measuring cup, and then I add all the goods on top of it. I have also been known to use a food scale. Today I'm not going to do that. Okay, so we want to get to 1.5 cups, which is not quite half of this. So this can, I believe, is 29 ounces. Yes, and we need 1.5 cups would be 12. And we're going to use 24 today because we're doing 2 recipes. So that will leave me with 5 ounces of leftover pumpkin, which is not a bad thing. You can use pumpkin in a lot of things. I've even used pumpkin as a base for chili. Okay, nice hatch chili. Oh, that's so good. So you can add it to pancake mix. I'm just smoothing out the top so that I can read it to see if it's at the half mark. Nope. Because of the moisture the pumpkin brings to the party, you do not want extra. So try and get this as close to 1.5 as possible. Okay, so we are good on that. Set that aside for the second batch. In my last video, I was really precise when I measured out 1.5 butter's done, 1.5 tablespoons of water and avocado oil. I am not going to be that precise today because it's not normally how I bake. But if you are a precise person, which is perfectly fine, 1.5 tablespoons is the same as 1 tablespoon, 1 teaspoon, and 1/2 teaspoon. I am just going to do it the way I always do it. So 1, and then what looks like about 1/2. And then you want the same amount of oil. If you like coconut oil, I suppose you can use that. Avocado oil, I find imparts a flavor I'm not a fan of. So avocado oil is my favorite for baking. So again, I want 1 tablespoon plus what looks like 1/2. And what the water and oil are doing in this recipe is replacing the egg. Okay, and then 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Okay, here are my extracts. We are looking at 1 teaspoon vanilla and 1/8 teaspoon almond. My measuring spoons don't have 1/8, so you just want to get 1/2 of a quarter. Eyeball it. If you are not a fan of almond extract, that is fine, leave it out. Okay, let's add the butter. And I am just going to borrow the spoon from the dry because they're all going to be together in just a moment anyway. Okay, just like with any muffin method, wet to dry. Okay, this is what we are left with here. Now, my experience with any kind of gluten-free or grain-free baking is that it really likes to sit and hydrate before you put it in the oven. So it's going to relax over there, and let's make some of the cream cheese mixture. Okay, so for the mixture, if you have piping bags, great. I also have piping bags, but I don't want to waste one on such a small amount of mixture. So I'm going to use just a regular old zipper-topped sandwich bag. So this cream cheese is 8 ounces. So I've already scored down the middle half. So you're looking for 4 ounces. I just want to preface this by saying this is tasty, but the cream cheese will not perform as regular dairy, so don't expect that. It is as close as you're going to get, though, and the order in which we're going to mix this is important, or else it just kind of flies everywhere. So once you get the cream cheese into your bowl, as you can see, it's fighting me. I'm going to break it up a little bit, and then the first thing you want to add to this, you want to add the dry ingredients first. So you need 1 teaspoon of flour. I find the cassava flour to be the better choice, but again, feel free to experiment with what makes you happy. So 1 teaspoon of the flour, and then 2 tablespoons of sugar. Again, not brown sugar, but you can use coconut sugar. This is white sugar. And you are going to use the back of the spoon and start slowly working those dry ingredients into the cream cheese. Okay, and as you can see, that will loosen it up nicely. And then you can add slowly the last 2 ingredients. I am going to start with the extract, which is a half teaspoon. Work it in. I know that you can get clear vanilla. If the color of this matters to you, then by all means do it. I don't care, so it's going to be what it is. And then the last piece to this is a teaspoon of whatever dairy-free milk makes you happy. Again, this is the dairy-free milk that makes me happy. 1 teaspoon. And I am then done with this because this is the only time that milk shows up in this recipe is in the cream cheese mixture. Okay, so we're going to get that mixed together, and then this goes in the bag, and I have kind of a trick for it. I will show you my trick. It makes life easier, helps you get all of it out. Okay, so you're going to take your sandwich bag. This keeps it out of the teeth, so you're going to roll it over twice. And then you want to try and pile it all in one corner because you're going to be snipping that corner and squeezing from it. Then that way you don't have to spend all this time trying to get all of the goodness down to the corner you need it. So we're going to aim it for that corner right there. Okay. Once you get it all done into that corner, you can unwind it. You can see mine traveled up the bag because I used the bag to scrape off the spoon. And get as much of the air out as possible. Okay. Now, this is going to wait for us for a moment because we are going to load up the muffin tin. So I have been baking for a long time, and my baking supplies reflect that, so don't think poorly of me. This is clean, it has been washed, this is what doesn't come off. So whatever muffin tin papers make you happy, I will just say this from experience. If you are going to be doing like I am today, which is making a version that you can eat and a version you can't, color code the muffin cups. So for me today, let's see here. Let's do white, and then for everyone else, we will do tan. I am going to pop out 15 of these. Now I like these. Not only do they kind of look nice, but they are fun because when you want to eat, you can just pull them open and they become like a little plate for your muffin. And if you're like me and you hate doing dishes, then that means you can get by with just a fork in this, or no fork. That's also an option. Okay, so there's 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, if you also like these, I got these off of Amazon. Let me put that in the bag right now. This is what the package looks like, and I don't remember them being very expensive. If you go back through my videos, you'll see that for my older daughter's birthday, when she turned 10, we had a Paris-themed party, and these were the only black liners that I could find, and they look kind of fun anyway, so that's why we still have them, and we're still going through them. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. We're going to get the batter into the muffin cups, and then I will show you what we do with the cream cheese. Okay, so you can see they are filled up, 2/3 full, and this is where the magic happens. So we are going to snip off the tip of this, so kind of squeeze the goods away from the edge. And this now becomes pastry bag. This is how I find it easier to do it. So you are literally going to shove it into the center and just do a little squeeze. If it gets on top, it gets on top. It doesn't matter. It is kind of loose. Okay, there's still some in here, so let's share with his friends. Okay. Okay, so these are going to go in the oven for 25 minutes at 350. And while they are baking, I'm going to get cleaned up and prepare to do this again with dairy. I gave our friends here a few minutes to cool off before I start to handle them. I did get a knife out to help me get them out, but I think I can just pull them out by their little papers. So I'm gonna get these out of the cookie, sorry, not cookie, I'm making cookies, muffin tray. And then I will set it aside and we can start mixing up the dairy version. The measurements will vary a little bit because we are not having to replace the egg. But otherwise it will be mostly the same. We're still looking at 1.5 cups of flour. So the flours will be the same ratios. But this is what our friends look like here. And I'm going to get this guy out of the way and we can start mixing the other version. Okay, so let's move on now to the grain-free but with butter and dairy. We're going to do this in the beginning, just like we did before, with some minor tweaks. So let's start with the 5 flours. These 4 right here, I will do 1/4 cup each. And then the last flour will be 1/2 cup. I'm just going to measure everything with the same 1/4 cup measuring cup I was doing before. So we've got, I'm going to try and go as fast as I can. So we've got 1/4 cup of buckwheat, 1/4 cup tiger nut flour, 1/4 cup coconut flour, 1/4 cup sweet potato flour. And again, if you don't have all these flours, it's fine. Use whatever combo you like. I would just say probably not almond because it makes it really heavy. Your goal though is just to get to 1.5 cups of flour. This is the blend I like though. And then the last flour is cassava flour. I'm going to do 1/2 cup of this. The next measurement is sugar. We're looking at 3/4 cup white sugar. You can also use coconut. I would just say no brown sugar because of the moisture. Okay, the next ingredient is grain-free baking powder. You're going to want 2 teaspoons of this. Next, 1 teaspoon baking soda. My baking soda is a little lumpy. And then 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Use whatever salt makes you happy. This is what salt is easiest for me today because I don't feel like grinding it. I do have sea salt and Himalayan salt, but this is what I'm using. And then the last one is 1 teaspoon of pumpkin spice, or if you have pumpkin pie spice, that is fine. Don't run out and buy new spices. For this purpose, there's not much of a difference. If you have a preference, then go for it. Okay, so that is all of the dry ingredients. Now, because some of the flours that I use and my clumpy baking soda is clumpy, I'm going to take a spoon and stir it and kind of knock down the clumps, and then we'll start on the wet. I'm just knocking down the clumps with the back of the spoon. Okay. Set that aside, and now we will measure the wet. Just like with the grain-free vegan, we will start with 1.5 cups of pumpkin puree. Whatever is left in this can when I am done, I will put in a food storage container and save it for something else. Okay, so I'm just trying to get all the air bubbles out and make sure I get exactly 1.5 cups. It does matter. You want to get it as exact as possible. So to the pumpkin, I'm going to add an egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1/8 teaspoon almond extract, And then I have a half a stick of butter here, which equates to 1/4 cup. And I'm just gonna melt it and add it. Okay, so before I add the butter, which is melted, I am going to mix this egg into the pumpkin. My goal, because this butter is still kind of warm, is I don't want to make a nice scrambled egg on top. That would be not tasty. Okay, so once the butter goes in, I'm going to add my last special ingredient, which is apple cider vinegar. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. This will react with the baking soda to give it a little extra lift. Okay, now the wet can go into the dry, and just like with the vegan recipe, this will be a thick batter. I am going to set this aside and let the, once it's mixed, I'll set it aside and let the flours kind of hydrate before we put them in the muffin tin. Okay, so this is what the dough looks like, and now I am ready to mix up the cream cheese. Okay, just like with the vegan version, the order in which you add the ingredients does matter. So we are going to start with 4 ounces of cream cheese. Now I have made this version, this recipe, a variety of versions over the years, including with regular flour. There are some adjustments compared to this, but you want full fat cream cheese. This is not a place to go low fat. It will make a difference. So I'm just going to take a moment, even though this has been sitting on the counter for a while, to mash it up a little bit, soften it. The first thing I'm going to add is 2 tablespoons of sugar. And 1 teaspoon of cassava flour. Again, use whatever flour makes you happy. I would just say almond flour is probably not your friend for this recipe. Okay, so use the back of the spoon to work the dry ingredients into the cream cheese. And the reason you do it in this order is it not only does it mix better, but it keeps you from getting it all over the kitchen, which is a plus. Okay, so the last 2 ingredients are milk and vanilla. I'm going to start with the vanilla. So I'm going to add just a half teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, get that mixed in. And just like with the vegan recipe, if you like clear vanilla because you want a nice white center, then by all means go for it. I am not that picky. Okay, and then the last one is milk, and you need 1 teaspoon. Now, if you happen to not be gluten-free or grain-free or dairy-free, if you can eat whatever you like, and you would like a different version of this, drop me a comment or send me a message. I'm happy to share that. Now, if you are gluten-free and not just grain-free, like if you can have rice and corn and stuff like that, and you still want to do this recipe, you absolutely can. You don't need to balance all of these different flours. You can simply just get a 1-to-1 ratio gluten-free flour. Before I figured out that it was all grains and not not just gluten. My favorite was Bob's Red Mill, but try a few, figure out what you like, but otherwise it's the same as what I'm doing here, just without all the multitudes of flour. You just be straight 1-to-1 ratio gluten-free flour. Okay, so once you have everything mixed well, you don't have any clumps of anything, it should look like that. And just like with the vegan recipe, this is my trick. Just a regular zipper sandwich bag. Roll it over twice so that you can keep the mixture out of the zipper. And I aim everything down into one corner. Okay, so now everything's down in one corner. I'm gonna get rid of this bowl and wash my hands. Okay, so unfold it. Try and get as much of the air out as you can. Set this aside. We will come back to that in a second. Let's fill up our muffin cups. Okay, so 15 muffins. We're just going to evenly fill these up. End up being about 2/3 full. Okay, just like with the vegan version, we're going to use this as a pastry bag. Just squeezing everybody down into the corner, and I'm going to snip off this corner. I'm going to do it over the trash. Okay, I find the best method with a pastry bag is I kind of accordion it, and then I can twist it. And then you're just going to use this to punch it into the center of each muffin, and then we'll go in the oven. Clean my hands. Okay, this is what they look like, and now they're going to go in the oven. And this will be, no, this is just a little bit different because this has egg in it. 20 minutes. So we'll go in the oven 20 minutes at 350. Okay, so these are the grain-free, but still full dairy and egg version. Get these out of the muffin tin and let them finish cooling. My daughters are due home from school in about 30 minutes, so they will be very excited to have a muffin. The most important thing I can tell you about storing these, because they have the cream cheese in them, is they do need to go in the refrigerator. You cannot just leave them on the counter. And I'm not sure about the vegan ones. Because the vegan cream cheese is refrigerated, I just assume that it also needs to be refrigerated. So for safety's sake, put them in some sort of food storage container and pop them in the freezer. I will say this, they freeze really well. So once they're cool, if you wanted to individually, here's my ice maker, if you wanted to individually bag them up in food storage bags and then freeze them, they will last. My experience is once you get past 3 months, they're not so fabulous. Obviously freezing and thawing does change the texture a little bit, but it's not too bad. And considering I made 30 muffins today, I expect to be freezing some of them. And when I am done filming this, I am going to film making grain-free vegan sourdough snickerdoodle cookies. Those I'm going to make in a double batch with the intent of freezing half and baking off half. So our house will be full of baked goods, and that is another reason why freezing is a very good solution. Okay, so these over here are the vegan, all of them are grain-free, but these ones are vegan, meaning that they don't have any butter or real cheese in them, okay? These are essentially mine, I guess you could say, but these they're grain-free, but they've got real cream cheese, real butter, and real milk in them. So you guys can have either one, but the white ones are the only ones Mom can have. Should we try it? Let's try it. Mine is kind of goofy because my cheese melted.
It's fine. It's a muffin. You eat it. Wait, on 3.
Does it taste the same as when it was made with real flour? Good.
It tastes cinnamony.
Cinnamony? Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining me in the kitchen today. As you can see, the muffins were a hit. In fact, since I stopped filming the last clip and started filming this, my daughter had 4 friends show up, and they are all outside enjoying muffins right now. So there won't be any left for the family, but that's fine. That's fine. Next up is I will be making some grain-free, vegan, sourdough snickerdoodle cookies. I'm very excited for that, so keep your eye open for that. And as always, thank you for being here. I appreciate your presence. I'll see you next time.